This property now belongs to the U.S. Army. You need to vacate immediately.
This is outrageous. You can't do this.
The courtroom was hushed, the air thick with anticipation. Reporters lined the back wall, pens poised, cameras waiting for the moment Sylvia Thorne walked in. She arrived like a queen stripped of her crown, her tailored navy suit doing little to hide the cracks in her composure. The once untouchable president of the HOA now stood at the defendant's table, staring at a stack of federal indictments that could end her empire forever. Quentin sat only a few feet away, shoulders squared, the weight of his father's ranch and a community's trust pressing against his chest. He didn't glance at Sylvia. He didn't need to. For the first time, she was the one on the defensive. "Your Honor," the prosecutor began, his voice steady, "this case is not simply about unpaid dues or technical oversights. This is about fraud, intimidation, and the systematic theft of homes. Ms. Thorne ran her HOA like a racket, exploiting loopholes, falsifying records, and weaponizing the law to strip families of their property. Today, the Department of Justice will prove it," Sylvia's attorney shot up. "Objection, a prejudicial." "Overruled," Judge Whitaker said firmly, his gavel tapping once. The first exhibit lit up on the screen. Forged bank statements, Sylvia's initials scrawled on the corner. Murmurs spread across the courtroom. Quentin could feel the shift. The invincible fortress Sylvia had built was beginning to crack brick by brick, and yet he knew better than to celebrate early. Sylvia had allies in high places, men and women in suits who had profited from her scheme. If she went down, they would too, and they would fight tooth and nail to bury the truth. Sylvia leaned toward her lawyer, whispering urgently. For the first time in years, her eyes betrayed fear. Quentin clenched his fists under the table. He wasn't just fighting for his ranch anymore. He was fighting for everyone who had ever been bullied, threatened, or swindled by the empire Sylvia built. The battle had finally shifted, and this time, Sylvia Thorne wasn't the hunter. She was the hunted. Quentin parked his truck at the edge of the gravel drive, staring at the place that used to be his world. The old ranch house stood proud against the horizon, its weathered boards glowing in the late afternoon sun. But it wasn't his anymore, not legally. A young family lived there now. Through the window, he saw a little boy chasing a puppy across the living room floor. Laughter echoed faintly, carried on the wind, and for a moment Quentin's chest tightened with something worse than anger, sorrow. He stepped out of the truck, boots crunching against the dirt. A woman opened the screen door, wary but polite. "Mr. Raines?" she asked softly. Word of his lawsuit had traveled fast in town. Quentin nodded. "Ma'am, I don't want to cause you any trouble. I just needed to see it." His voice faltered. "My dad built that barn with his own hands. Every fence post out there he planted himself." The woman lowered her eyes. "We didn't know. The HOA told us everything was clean. We put our savings into this place." Quentin swallowed hard. He could see it in her face. The same exhaustion, the same fear that had haunted so many families Sylvia Thorne had swindled. They weren't thieves. They were victims too. "I believe you," Quentin said finally, his voice rough. "You shouldn't have to pay for her lies." Behind him, his lawyer cleared his throat. "Quentin, we can file to have them removed." "You'd have the ranch back before trial ends?" Quentin looked back at the boy in the window, a child running free, just as he once had. He shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "If I win this fight, it won't be by throwing another family onto the street. I'll take Sylvia down in court, but these people stay. We'll find another way." For the first time in weeks, Quentin felt the weight in his chest lift, just a little. His father's voice echoed in memory. A man's land is his pride, but his word is his honor. And in that moment, Quentin chose honor. Sylvia Thorne sat in her penthouse office, glass of wine untouched, city lights sprawling beneath her like a kingdom she refused to lose. The courthouse humiliation still burned in her veins. Forged records, prosecutors circling like wolves, Quentin Raines staring at her with that quiet defiance. No, she would not fall. Not to him. Not to anyone. Her phone buzzed. "A private line," she answered without hesitation. Do it, she said coldly. I want him discredited before the next hearing. On the other end, a shadowy voice replied, We can plant documents, make it look like he forged signatures to cover his mortgage. A military man turning criminal? The press will eat it alive. Sylvia smirked, her composure returning like armor slipping back into place. Perfect. By the time the jury sees him, he won't be a soldier defending his father's legacy. He'll be a fraud just like the rest. 2 days later, Quentin's lawyer stormed into his motel room, tossing a folder onto the bed. Inside were copies of falsified papers, supposedly showing Quentin had faked loan modifications years ago. This is bad, the lawyer said grimly. If the jury buys this, they'll think you're no better than her. Quentin stared at the pages, fury rising in his chest. He knew exactly who was behind it. Sylvia was striking back, playing dirtier than ever. But as his anger simmered, resolve hardened beneath it. He had survived worse. The desert, the battlefield, watching brothers fall beside him. Sylvia's lies were just another kind of war. She wants me scared, Quentin muttered, his voice like steel. But I'm not running. I'll fight her in the open. And when I prove these are fake, she'll wish she never tried. Outside, thunder cracked across the horizon, a storm rolling in. Inside, Quentin felt something he hadn't in weeks. Not fear, not doubt, determination. The counterattack had begun, but this time, Sylvia wasn't the only one who knew how to fight dirty. The town hall was packed, the air stifling with anger and anticipation. Folding chairs scraped across the floor as neighbors crammed shoulder to shoulder, their voices rising in restless murmurs. At the front stood Sylvia Thorne, flanked by 2 board members, her smile painted on but her eyes sharp as glass. This meeting, she began smoothly, tapping the microphone, is to reassure all of you that the HOA remains strong. The rumors of corruption, of fraud, lies spread by one bitter man, are nothing but noise. I have always acted in your best interests. The crowd erupted, not with applause but with jeers. A woman in the back shot to her feet. Best interests? You doubled our fees last year and threatened to foreclose when we couldn't pay. Yeah! Another man shouted, waving a stack of papers. You told us our homes weren't up to code unless we hired your cousin's construction company. You bled us dry. Sylvia's smile flickered. That's misinformation, misunderstandings. The murmurs swelled into a roar. People who had once been silent now stood, one after another, voices breaking with anger and betrayal. My mother lost her house because of you. You forged my signature on those forms. You're nothing but a thief. Quentin sat near the back, arms crossed, watching it unfold. He hadn't come to speak. He didn't need to. The people were speaking for themselves now. Finally, an elderly man, cane in hand, hobbled to the front. His voice was quiet but carried across the room. For years we trusted you, Sylvia. You told us we couldn't fight back, but we've seen the truth. You don't own us. We own this community. A thunder of applause shook the hall. Sylvia's composure cracked. For the first time, she looked cornered, like an animal surrounded. Her board members shifted uneasily, edging away as though they didn't want to sync with her. Quentin rose slowly, locking eyes with her across the sea of neighbors. He didn't say a word, but the message was clear. Your empire is crumbling, and this time it's not just me. It's all of us. The jury filed back into the courtroom, faces unreadable, eyes fixed straight ahead. The room held its breath. Sylvia sat rigid at the defense table, pearl necklace tight against her throat. Her manicured hands clasped so hard, her knuckles whitened. Quentin sat across from her, calm but unblinking, his father's old Stetson resting on the bench beside him. The foreman stood. On the charge of racketeering, we find the defendant. The pause was a blade through the silence. Guilty. Gasps erupted. Reporters scrambled to jot the words. Neighbors hugged, and Quentin exhaled for the first time in weeks. Sylvia's face froze in disbelief, her empire of intimidation collapsing in an instant. Judge Whitaker's gavel struck. Order! Miss Thorne, you are hereby remanded into federal custody. This court is adjourned. As the guards closed in, Sylvia's mask cracked. You'll regret this, Raines, she hissed, her voice shrill, desperate. But Quentin didn't answer. The community's applause drowned her out. For once, she had no power left. Alternative shadow ending. The jury foreman's voice rang out. "Not guilty!" The words echoed like gunfire. Sylvia leaned back in her chair, a slow, venomous smile curling across her lips. She had escaped again, shielded by her allies in high places, but when she rose to leave, the crowd didn't cheer. They didn't bow to her power. They turned their backs, one by one, neighbors, former board members, even her so-called friends in business. They walked out without a word, leaving Sylvia alone in the cavernous courtroom. Victory tasted like ash. She might have slipped through the law's grip, but her kingdom was gone. Quentin stood at the doors, watching her. "You may have beaten the system," he said quietly, "but you'll never own this town again." And with that, he walked away, the sound of his boots echoing like the closing of a chapter.